So we're going to look at what's called solving monic quadratic trinomials. So basically, you've got some quadratic and you want to know what values of x you could put in to solve it, right? So for example, if we look at this one, got x squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's just talk about this word here, monic. Monic just means the coefficient of x squared is 1. Quadratic means the highest power is 2. And trinomial means that there's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. Okay, what we're going to do to factorize it is, I like this way just as a way of explaining the factorization process. If you take the x squared that's here and you put it into an x squared tile, you can see that this length and this length is x by x. So that's x squared there, and then you put the third term plus 6 down here. And then what you do is you think to yourself, okay, these two green tiles have to add up to 5x because these two green tiles will be like terms. So they have to add up to 5x. So as we said, there'll be x and x here. If you put a plus 2 here, and then you put a plus 3 down here, 2 multiplied by 3, so this length by this length is 6, right? Okay, that would mean that this green tile is 2x because 2 multiplied by x is positive 2x. Then this green tile down here will be 3 multiplied by x, which will be 3x. So you get a situation that looks something like this. And then the question is, okay, how do we factorize it? Or what are the side lengths of this square? Well, it's x plus 2 multiplied by x plus 3. X plus 2 multiplied by x plus 3. And we know that that whole thing equals 0. And then we have to apply what's called the null factor law. So if x plus 2 multiplied by x plus 3 equals 0, then either x plus 2 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. And I might make another video to explain that in more detail, but hopefully you've seen that before. And you get x equals -3 and x equals -2 as your solutions. Okay, if you didn't draw this picture, that's fine. The other way to do it is to do it like this. So you take the same question. Okay, you need to ask yourself what multiplies to give 1 times 6. Okay, a is the coefficient of x squared, c is the constant term. So 1 times 6 is just 6, and b is 5. So you ask yourself what multiplies to 6 and adds to 5. And I think you'll come to the conclusion that 3 and 2 are what multiply to give 6, but add to give 5. So that means we're going to break this 5x term up into 3x plus 2x. And you can sort of see how it's the same thing over here, 3x plus 2x. Okay, then you need to look at the first part to factorize by grouping. So you look at this first part. What's the highest common factor there? Well, x is the highest common factor, so that comes out the front. The highest common factor in the second part is 2. So you get x multiplied by x plus 3 plus 2 multiplied by x plus 3. Now the question is, what is the highest common factor in here? Well, x plus 3 is a common factor, right? So x plus 3 comes out the front, and you're left with x plus 2. And so you get the same answer as before. X plus 3 multiplied by x plus 2 equals 0. Apply the null factor law. X equals -3, x equals -2. Okay, so there's sort of two, obviously the same way, sort of two different approaches to solve that problem. The other way to do it is use what's called the quadratic formula, right? So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that's a formula that you will hopefully have come across at some stage. If not, I'll put a link below to explain where that all comes from. Okay, let's just think about this quadratic. A is 1, the coefficient of x squared is 1, b is 2, and c is 6. So we've got to substitute all that in. So subbing all that in gives us this. -5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6 all over 2. Okay, this is 25 minus 24, which is just 1. And the square root of 1 is just 1. So you get -5 plus or minus 1 on 2. Okay, that's two solutions, yeah? -5 plus 1 on 2, which is -5 plus 1 is -4, divided by 2 is -2. And similarly, the other one is -5 minus 1 on 2, which is -6 on 2, which is -3. And we get the same answers, obviously, -2 and -3. So hopefully you can see sort of two or three different ways to solve a monic quadratic trinomial there. Let's have a look at the graph. This is the graph. This is what it looks like. If you had a calculator and you just wanted to graph it, you could do that. So we said, where does this equal 0? Well, we can see at -3 and -2, we have x-intercepts. So that's sort of visual, well, it's graphically why it's a solution. Okay, here's a problem to wrap up. See if you can solve x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. And do it whichever way you're more comfortable with. I suppose what I would say is don't worry about the negative numbers. Just be careful with the negative numbers, right? So when you're adding, you're going to have to add negative numbers and you have to multiply negative numbers. So just be careful with that. All right, good luck with all your studies.